All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond, Season 3, Episode 10. We making it, y'all. We making it. First and foremost, I'll be remiss if I didn't start out with my thanks. Thanks to everyone who's been on here. Thank you for all the support, the love, the likes, the comments, the shares, and more. I truly appreciate all the support that I've gotten, all the support that this platform has gotten, and all the support that you guys have given the individual guests who's been on here. So thank you so much for that. Without further ado, if you have made it to season 3 or you've skipped or just started listening from here, my name is Michael D. Davis Thomas, aka MDDT Speaks. It sounds like a wrestling move, I understand. But I spent 11 years in the Michigan child welfare system, starting out on the juvenile justice side, ending out and aging out of the foster care side. From that, I've worked in many different sectors of child welfare, starting out as an advocate, working in youth care worker positions, doing juvenile corrections, to doing consultant program development, and more. So I have a little bit skin in the game. So that's me, but you guys aren't here for me. I'm going to have my guests introduce themselves. Whoever want to go first.
Hey guys, my name is Kayla Powell, coming to you from Iowa. I grew up in Iowa's foster care system, spent the majority of my childhood there. And like Michael, first got involved in advocacy work, and that led to me becoming a fellow with the Jim Casey Youth Opportunities Initiative, which we'll talk more about soon. And then now I work full-time for my state agency, doing some really cool data collection and youth engagement work. And I'm also a mom and a wife and a lover of plants. Those are also probably the most important parts about me.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll have my other guest introduce himself.
I am Eltuan Dawson. I'm 28. I spent about 14 years in foster care. And throughout just several of those experiences in the system of care, I've learned to really speak up and advocate for myself. And that kind of carried over to learning how to speak up and advocate for other folks and, helping folks to meet their needs through policy change and working similar to what Kayla had mentioned for you all. I'm currently a consultant, and today I'm here with both you, Michael, and Kayla, to represent the AnnieECaseyFoundation's Journey to Success campaign.
Well, it's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to have you both on here. I'm truly honored and privileged for you guys taking out the time. So the audience can understand this would be a little bit of a different flow than my normal questions and what have you. Hopefully you guys still mess with me after this. But if not, it's okay. I still love y'all, but I'm pretty sure y'all will. Either way, before I get into the meat, and what I usually typically like to do is kind of build up on who my guests are. I'm not going to go through all my questions, but there is one particular question I do want to ask you both, since you guys both work within this space of child welfare and do many different things within it, and plus have lived in it. To your now versus your then, how has mental health and self-care played a part? Whoever wants to answer that first.
That's a very good question, Michael. So I think mental health has been really one of my biggest, personal battles growing in the system of care, where we have these numbers, right? So African American males that grow up in the system, usually, there's statistics that we might fall into. Most of them not so good or positive. But I've had dreams of not falling into any of those statistics and just being better for myself and for society.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I think for me, like when I reflect back, because that was a deep question right from the start, Michael. I think for me, reflecting back on like growing up, mental health and like taking care of your mental health was always framed as going to therapy. So as a youth growing up in the foster care system, thought a rotating door of therapists because I moved around so much. And grateful for those opportunities. And what I had to do though growing up is like redefine what well-being and mental health and self-care was, and recognizing that it's more than talk therapy. It's like setting boundaries, it's prioritizing sleep, it's taking breaks, it's finding and prioritizing joy and taking part of things that bring me happiness. And so as an adult now, those are things that I really focus on, in addition to like trying to practice yoga, even though that's incredibly hard now with a toddler. But all of those things that get my mind right, which is incredibly important when doing work that's so heavily connected to trauma.
Definitely, definitely. Wow. Leave it to Michael to have a icebreaker that's deep. So yeah. But I thank you guys for answering that and just laying out the lay of the land for this episode. Um Eltuan, you spoke about the Journey to Success campaign. Could you share a little bit more about that and what that entails?
Absolutely. So, Journey to Success is a policy advocacy campaign that seeks to improve opportunities and outcomes for all youth and young adults who experience foster care. So, we're focused on healing family connections and economic security as folks transition out of care and into their own independence and just finding their own way in life.
While I have you on that, thank you for sharing that and breaking that down a little bit more for me and the audience. Why is it important to you?
Life is not easy, not just for myself, but for other folks. Oftentimes in care, you might hear from your peers a lot of some of the things that they've been through, and if it's not you, then somebody else definitely had it worse. And so there's a lot of things that you could get out of it, like gratitude. So I've learned to really appreciate where I came from, where I started, the people who've helped me get to the point where I'm at. And so Journey to Success really, highlights some key things for our youth and young adults who live in the system and who are only on their way out to their independence and really trying to gain skills, resources, knowledge that can help keep them uh, in a stable place in society and just a functioning member of society. And I would say that icebreaker was very helpful. We got to continue to think about our mental health and remind us of how important that is. And so that's a lot of the focus too of Journey to Success, just making sure that you know youth and young adults don't have to worry about uh, some of the obstacles that you know people usually have to worry about, given the origin situations of many of us who grew up in care or who are currently in care. Um, we talk about, I mentioned connection with family, and so that might be a goal for some, and for some it might not be, but that is still a huge and important part of a young person reaching their goals, is really, whether it be family trauma or just reconnecting with family, just being able to heal through those things and find some success in that, in ourselves and our journeys.
Thank you so much for diving a little bit deeper in that on a more personal level for yourself and for the audience and for me. It helps me definitely be able to connect to this campaign and understand it a little bit more. So, Journey to Success has been supporting advocates and uplifting new data on the experiences of teens and young adults in foster care. Where does that data come from? And what are some of the key findings?
I can start on this, but also want to take take a step back to Eltuan's point and just also lift up that the Journey to Success campaign was like co-created with folks with lived experience, and to everything that Eltuan just said is like a national policy advocacy that doubles down on the importance of healing for youth who've experienced foster care system. And so it's really refreshing to see like something so national focus on those things, because that's new for me, to see that on a national stage. And the data that's connected to the Journey to Success campaign right now came from a new report that was released by the AnnieECaseyFoundation that Eltuan and I are representing today, called Fostering Youth Transitions. It's the second time that Casey has pushed out this report. I was a part of it the first time, and it was really cool to see how states used it, and now even more so that it's building more momentum and is getting a name out there. And the data comes from two different places primarily. One, the National Youth Transition Database, which I know, Michael, you've had some federal United reviewers on your podcast before, so your loyal listeners should know what night it is.
Yes.
And then it also comes from AFCARS, and if you give me like 6 seconds, maybe I can break down that acronym for you. It's like the Adoption and Foster Care Reporting System or something like that. And all of that data is about older youth in the foster care system, so youth ages 14 to 21 in all 50 states, and also Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, in doing my homework, my understanding that, there's Chafee tied to this data and in some form, and that despite tremendous need, only 1 in 4 eligible youth receive a Chafee funded service. Can you speak more about this?
Well, first, Michael, we'll have to, define clearly for everyone
Go ahead.
who is listening what Chafee is, right, and who can access Chafee funds. So I'm going to read this definition that we have on our wonderful tool, Google. Chafee funds are used to assist youth, young adults in a wide variety of areas designed to support a successful transition to adulthood. So I mentioned resources earlier, right? So those would be some of the resources available to youth and young adults who are in foster care and trying to transition successfully into adulthood. And it entails a lot of different opportunities for young people to do things like get their post-secondary education after high school graduation, and access funds that otherwise they would not be able to obtain given family status, and so that's what Chafee is for our young people in care, and the resource that is available for access.
Thank you for breaking that down. I really appreciate that. I don't know. I didn't know, Kayla, if you wanted to respond upon my first question with that.
Yeah, so I mean, a little history lesson is what I learned about Chafee was that back in the 1990s, when we were all maybe not born yet, or I was a little kid, there was not, up until that point, there was not any federal funding to support older youth in foster care. And there also wasn't any data to track how young people were doing as they exited the system. And a legislator at the time, Legislator Chafee, heard about a situation that came out of New York City where an indigenous teenager exited out of the system and tried really hard to get connected to resources, but there weren't any available for him, and he was found dead on the street months later after aging out. And it was that story that really spearheaded the integration and creation of Chafee funds into the Social Security Act of 1999. And what that act did was two things. Is one, that it created Chafee, so these flexible funds that states can use to support older youth in and transitioning out of foster care. And then also required states for the first time ever to track and report back to the feds what services are being provided to older youth, and then what are those outcomes that older youth are experiencing. And we track those outcomes at the age, by surveying youth at 17, 19, and 21 through NIDED. And it's from that data that we saw, like, really great reason for these CHAFE services to exist. This is what older youth in foster care need. I know I needed services as an older youth in foster care and transitioning out. But then the data that the feds have says only 1 in 4 are actually getting a service. And so it's like, what's the gap that's happening? Why is this happening? And I think that we could unpack that a little bit based off our own experiences and what we've heard from others that have taken a look at this data as well.
Thank you for sharing that, and it's cool to hear that you guys are focusing at those ages, of young adults and like, 17, 19 and 21, because that hits extended foster care, and that's something that I've personally experienced. And it was, for what it was, for what it was, I got some essence of support from it. And I know some of my listeners are, used to, heard a little bit about my story, and as I grow and as I'm able to analyze different things from my own experience, as much as many other people lived experience, you're able to see things from a different lens. And I will admit that there was a level of support, but also at the time when I was in extended foster care, they didn't have as much as they needed, as much as we have now in that aspect of supporting the older youth. So it's definitely different now versus when I was in there. But I want to kind of segue us, and either one of you, could you take us through an example of, let's see, 1 or 2 suggestions that legislators, lawmakers, and so forth can improve the CHAFE program?
This is actually one of our main and important subjects, one of our main recommendations for policy change through the Journey to Success campaign. And so the goal here, right, is to invest in and redesign CHAFE to ensure youth in foster care are plugged into supportive relationships and services. And so we recommend that policymakers redesign the CHAFE program to maximize the intended impact of the program created for our youth and young people and families, that help prioritize family connections, and increase the investment. We're asking for more money, right, to help our young people who've had such a difficult time in care really transition into successful adulthood, because it's needed, right? We're hearing from our young people. We got this data from our young people collectively, and we also are asking that our policymakers share the data, have the conversations, talk to young people especially.
Yeah, +1 to raising the amount of CHAFE that is available. And I also think that it's the creation of new services, and that legislators like need to be co-creating what that looks like, or creating what that bill language looks like with those who are directly impacted. So older youth in foster care and transitioning out.
I want to touch a point you just made, Kayla. You said, creating new services. So hypothetically, what would one of those new services look like?
Oh, this is like a visioning question, like a dreaming question. I love it. I think if I were to become a senator tomorrow, I think more of like the guaranteed income type of services are incredibly important to folks who don't have access to money like some people do in our country. So like getting those monthly checks no matter what. And I also think, in addition to like the creation of new services, because each state gets to decide what services they're providing. And like, for example, I come from a state that doesn't provide transportation services to older youth, but we know that I come from a rural state. Like, we need cars to get around. Like, we need car insurance to get that car around. And so I think it'd be really specific about what new services look like. So that may be more of like a state policy decision. And then I think in addition to creating new services, it's somehow legislating or requiring that whatever services we're providing to older youth are holistic, they're responsive, and they're timely. So youth aren't having to wait 2 months, 3 months, 6 months to get one of their needs met. Like, for example, when I needed help paying my first month's rent on an apartment, like waiting 3 months to get that check does not work with landlords. Like, they're not waiting around 3 months to fill that apartment once someone expresses interest. So I think it's also somehow resourcing states or empowering states to be more responsive to the needs of older youth in the moment, and to create the relationships with the young people, so young people are comfortable reaching out when they do need help, and letting state, like, their workers know what their needs are.
You hit the nail on the head. What about you, Elton?
Well, Michael, a few of the goals we have for the campaign, right? We have shared values that we want to express and continue to share with the community, share with our young folks, our policymakers, just anybody and everybody involved. We want all young people uh, to understand, and everyone involved, that young people to understand that young people deserve to have supportive relationships, as Kayla mentioned, resources and opportunities to really survive and thrive. Right? It's not getting any easier out here for anyone, and so with just I continue to talk about where you might come from, right? But the goal here is really to push for folks to get somewhere different, right? Somewhere new, somewhere where they feel like they can thrive and be successful. We also share a value that transition from adolescence to adulthood um, can change us greatly, right? So we really want our young people in care, and even we call them alumni or lived experts, to really be in a place mentally where they feel stable and able to really be social, or just an example of a successful independence and what that might look like for a person who has been in the system of care. Um, yeah, so that's a few of the shared values that we have, and just there's so many opportunities. We we have so many solutions, and we set in uh, uh, study sessions with our groups of peers, just discussing what is important to us, what do we need, what have we needed, um, and what can help youth who have to live with these circumstances after we're gone, right? Who are currently in care, having to live with certain circumstances when we can push for improvements, right? So everyone lives a healthier uh, lifestyle.
So this is more of a sideline, but I'm really interested to hear you both's perspective. A lot of things has kind of shifted in some states, and I say some, in the aspect of family preservation, trying to do their best to support different cultures and heritage and traditions, but also, like, as advocates, as change makers, we are asking states and the federal government, in a essence, to some of their eyes, to try to be a parent and do all these different things. So, from a experience of shadowing legislators and talking to some of them, and really them not understanding why we ask for these things or why we are wanting this change, what, given the opportunity, would you share to them to help them understand the concept of what we're asking for?
For me, any advocacy that I do with legislators, I always try to, like, make it personal to them, or relatable to them. So most legislators have kids, so it's asking them about their own kids, and, like, what does support look like to them. For that, for that kid. And usually they'll say like they have a 25, 26-year-old and that they're still paying their car insurance or they helped pay for their college tuition. So it's like kind of comparing that relationship to like, okay, well, what do you expect like the youth who grew up in the foster care system and aged out of the foster care system to do? And then I think long-term thinking, it's then like more work. And I know there's some really great advocates out there already doing this work about creating decision-making bodies that reflect the people, and that there's more folks with the lived experience that we share in positions of power, so that we don't have to spend so much time, even though it's important, so that we don't have to spend so much time getting other folks to understand what we need, but that people who already do have that understanding are in the positions of power to advocate for it and to champion it and to make sure that it's a priority. But that's a lot of work. Maybe not, this won't be happening next year.
No, Kayla, I think too, it's an ongoing process, right? And so the work is happening, right? We're in our different sectors in the same field doing wonderful things and just collaborating to advocate on behalf of youth in care and for those changes that you mentioned to take place, so that we can stabilize what we know as the foster care system. Or there's even some conversations of, do we even need a foster system? So there's just exciting things happening in the work that we do, for sure. um, I do want to go back a bit, Michael, to kind of answer
Go ahead. Yep.
your question too. um, lawmakers do need to hear from our young people, right? And hear from, Kayla mentioned a lot of our policymakers have children, or grandchildren even, and so we just want to look out for the future, the life that they'll be growing into, and just how we're all affected, right? And so we just want folks to know that it's important for us to work together to 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 be in a place that is successful for everyone, and healthy, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, for everyone involved. And just, hearing from the young people is really the epicenter of the change that needs to be made.
And something Eltuan and I worked on together with some other folks with experience to help legislators and like state leaders and young people come together to have these conversations is developing like a community conversation guide that pairs nicely with the Fostering Youth Transitions report that we talked about earlier, that showcases all the data about older youth in the foster care system today. And so that guide is basically a guide on how to set a series of meetings about what can be done about this data in different states. And there's some examples from across the country already about how foster, why am I blanking on it? Like youth advisory boards, there we go. Youth advisory boards of youth who are currently informally in the foster care system have facilitated these conversations and invited their own legislators in and other leaders to talk through policy solutions and other ideas. Eltuan, is there anything you want to say about the community conversation guide?
Absolutely, Kayla, and you really touched up on it there. So the community conversation guide, we that was just one moment for myself, Kayla, and our other team at Journey to Success to really come together, look at some of the data that we're sharing with you today, and really dissect it in a way that can help have those conversations in community, create forums to discuss. And we have young people leading, and they're in our state part where our state partners are located in their communities. And so, this is a true Journey to Success campaign for our foster youth to be able to gain the resources, the access, and the knowledge that they need through relationship building and family contribution, and really getting what any of us need in life. And that's just, good welfare, honestly.
Thank you both for touching on that. I really love that, having a community conversation guide, man. that I can see that being useful to advocates and more, and pursuing and understanding, it a little bit more. Um, Before I segue to my next question, you both touched on in my question prior, you both touched on some very distinct points, and and advocating, in my experience, I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of legislators, directors and more, and it's more than just the distinct, traumatic, stories that um we hear, and stuff like that, because there's so many other stories that we don't get to hear, and what I've learned in this work, being at the front lines and then being distant from the front lines of this work, is that um not too many people are too far off from a situation, an occurrence, a health diagnosis, whatever, from having one else or a system having to take care of their kids. And I remember sharing something along those lines to a representative that I was shadowing at a time, to be able to relate that. We all are human beings. We all have different things that happen in life, and life be life. You know, Even more so when you are a parent, and you are responsible for another being. Um, but coming back, I know you guys touched on this a little bit individually in the beginning, but I'm gonna come back to it to get a little bit deeper. Um, how do you take care of yourself as an advocate?
Michael, I believe the only way that I can continue going on this road is if I do take care of myself for sure. It's hard to advocate for someone else when you're not really fulfilling your own needs, and so really taking time for yourself. That's one thing that I make a point to do for me, is to take time for myself to really get those things that I need. So it might be some mental clarity. So I might take some time to do some yoga. I do enjoy yoga, Kayla. Don't laugh. Some yoga or meditation. I do a lot of deep breathing. Really skilled, and I can train some of that stuff too as well. But self care, um, it, just practicing that it's a daily thing, and so really staying consistent in some of my self care practices, and a lot of it has to do with my spirituality, and really sticking to faith and believing and doing my best to stay in a positive mental space, not just for myself, but it really does reflect on the outside, uh, as far as what I'm able to give to others. And like you said, Michael, life do be life. And so, there's sometimes I might be able to show up and it be my best day, but, that's not realistic for me to show up every day and it be my best day. But I will give you my best every day that I do have to give. And I think too, that's just giving yourself grace, which is a huge part of healing and self care.
Eltuan, I love that you practice yoga, and I firmly believe that if everyone in the world practiced yoga, it would be a much calmer and kinder place. And the giving yourself grace, that's something that I'm working on. I think that's so challenging to do, especially when you're trying to do your best all the time, to Eltuan's point. But one of my favorite advocates from the state that I live in, Lyric Sellers, she always reminds me and keeps me accountable that taking care of yourself is taking care of the movement. And so I try to center that, especially like when it can, like there's that guilt that comes with like sitting on the couch all day and not doing anything, but just because like you needed a day of like no mental stimulation at all. So like that's what it looks like for me. And then also, no matter what, I'm getting my 8 hours of sleep. And so that's something that I always am going to prioritize my sleep, because that's what makes me show up better in the world, is when I'm well rested. And then back to my earlier point about just like immersing myself in joy and finding and spending time doing things that do make me happy, and like not feeling guilt about it, and always choosing to do that. over things that I feel like I should be doing, quote unquote.
Now, I have another question, and these two questions are more so tailored to you two as individuals. Um, Feel free to say pass to this question, or feel free to answer it. Whatever to your comfortability, I guess I would say. For you, Kayla, you mentioned that you're a mother, and you are a wife. We know within this work it can be daunting sometimes. How do you balance those different roles that you are performing? And I don't know if, for the lack of better words, um, in your personal life with this work.
Yeah, that's such a great question, and something that I really struggled with, especially in Nico's first year of life, was figuring out how to balance everything, and then not only balance all of the different roles that I hold in this world, but then also just like there's a different layer that comes with being a mom while you were also raised in the foster care system and didn't have any other moms to learn from. So like for me, my strategy was just to do everything that the moms in my childhood did. Like I was just going to do the opposite, and hope that works. And then there's always that thought like in the back of your head, like I don't want like my kid being raised with like the same feelings or experiences that I had to go through. So it's like just that constant like over analyzing every single day with your kid to make sure that you're not doing that is incredibly exhausting. And one of the best resources that I was provided the first year of Nico's life was, and I promise it's just coincidence that I'm here representing Annie Casey, but they were able to get me connected to a professional coach that helped me think through what balance meant to me. And that was like some really life-changing work for me in that moment and helped me achieve that balance where I feel really comfortable where I'm at now about being a mom and a wife, setting boundaries between work and life, and then also just approaching every day with like a fresh headspace. It's hard though.
I can imagine, and I commend you for that. Um, Thank you for sharing. Eltuan, man, once again, to whatever ability you're comfortable with, you could tell me you pass. Um, I know that we spoke about data and we talk about the aspect of healing, but with there being so many different pipelines and statistics surrounding around males who have lived experience, how do you see that and remain hopeful?
Even today, Mike, I'm doing some reflection about what that is, right? What that might be for me. And so, like when we began, I love how you switched it up for us, Kayla, because I was talking about statistics and uh, trying to bring in our data, right? But even then, I was like, you know what? Even me shooting as a goal to not fall into those statistics, I can see that there's still healing that is being done, right? And so it's not so much as setting goals to not fall into a certain number of poor performance, uh, as much as it is um, really wanting to genuinely, right, wanting to do better for myself and for others. And I think that's where balance comes in for me, Michael. And that's what helps me to continue to facilitate the work along with self care. Um, I think a large part of balance as well is really learning how to collaborate and work well with others. Really being having gratitude just to be able to share space with other people with different ideas and that bring different values and benefits to the table. Um, Really, that's a recipe for success right there. And so, when you have all those things, how can you not reach your goals, right? How can you not have the balance that you need, just for yourself, for myself? I'm speaking of self. But yeah, I hope, Michael, did that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it did. Yes, it did. I truly appreciate you guys getting a little bit deep with me. I've been told that I'm a deep individual. um, but I kind of want to go to another place in you guys' journey. How did you guys get connected into the work that you guys have done with NECASey and more? If you could talk a little bit about the advocacy and so forth, even being connected to the Journey to Success campaign, like how did that start for you, and so forth.
I began this journey way back when, I had some wonderful folks, assist me and just I guess they saw my mindset as a youth in care. I always try to do my best, and just do better for me and other people. Um, but so early on, I got involved doing speeches at fundraisers and things like that, for nonprofit youth serving organizations, and so over time, I just continued to work on those skills, get certain trainings that help me to um, not not only just improve myself, but the work, the quality that I bring to the work, um, that we share. Um, so I continued to grow right into an independent consultant. And so what I refer to myself as is a development analyst. And so a lot of that's just I do a lot of research, and so my focus is mental health, and youth development, right? So that's all ages and youth development in the most innovative, healthy, and sustainable ways, right? Um, and that's helped me gain partnerships with uh, individuals like Todd here, at NECASey with the Journeys to Success campaign, and Sheree and Kayla, wonderful people, um, to add to my network for sure as I continue to grow and build and navigate through the field of child welfare, to help improve the system.
For me, it felt like I was always presented like the right opportunities at the right time, and then those opportunities then got me connected with even more opportunities. So when I aged out of foster care, I was really angry about some of the things that I experienced, especially because of some of the laws at the time. And finally, I had a worker who asked me like, "Well, do you want to go do something about it?" And I vividly remember that moment, and she got me connected with some our state level advocacy organization that did all of this work. And then I started doing work with them, and then they referred me to attend the Jim Casey's Youth Leadership Institute. So then after going through that, then I was eligible to become a Jim Casey fellow. And then from there, it's just like an opportunity after opportunity presented itself. And now I get to do a lot of cool work with other national organizations in the federal government, and now working for my own state. But it was really just one opportunity led to another.
Thank you both so much for diving a little bit deep for me there, and sharing where did it begin. So coming a little bit back, where can people learn more about Journey to Success and or download the community conversation guide and more?
The community, let me get my words together. The community conversation guide is free online at journeytosuccess.org. That's journeytosuccess.org. The data is a free report, and our foster youth transitions 2023 is available at the AnnieECaseyFoundation's website at www.aecf.org.
Thank you so much for that. Only have a couple more questions for you guys. Just want to say once again, I appreciate you guys being in this space with me, sharing pieces about yourself, but also sharing this very important information. If I could put a little chime into those young listeners that are out there listening to this episode, whenever, wherever, um, if you have an opportunity to get to know and read some of this information, such as, you know, the Transition 2023 NEEKC uh, data report, and I probably butchered that, so somebody correct me after I'm done.
No, it's our foster youth transitions.
Thank you, appreciate it. I challenge you guys to take a look at that information. I know for some people, data statistics can be daunting, but I know for some people it can be motivators. Some people it can help, in the aspect of healing, and more. This information is free, to you guys. And one thing that someone told me in my childhood that was a breadcrumb, and now it's a whole loaf of bread, is that people can take many things from you, but they can't take the knowledge that you have obtained, you know? So take some time to really read this stuff, understand, and yeah. But my next question for you guys as I get ready to end us out with these one more question after this. Um, what is next? What is happening now in your individual lives? What does that look like for you guys?
I am excited to continue work on this campaign. So recently, the team of Valiant folks at Journey to Success have been able to, visit uh, places like the Capitol for advocacy purposes and really getting the information about this campaign out, our recommendations for policymakers, and really continuing to emphasize the importance of holding forums. And we have a guidebook, right, so that these forums can be conducted. And so that's some of the exciting things that we got going on with JTS. And there's so much more to come. I don't even know everything happening, right? I represent JTS. All right, we did work on the guidebook and dissected data and heard from our young people. Um, but there's just so much more, so much exciting things happening with the Journey to Success campaign. Uh, and before we get off here, Michael, I'd like to thank our national partners at Think of Us Foster Club, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Youth Law Center, and our state-based campaign partners also.
And for me, like I'm hoping we're getting ready to do some community conversations back in my home state using the guide that Eltuan and I and several others co-created. And hopefully, I feel like the Journey to Success campaign is just getting started. So can't wait to continue to witness all the greatness that comes out of their organized effort, so that hopefully we can continue and try to create the systems that all young people deserve.
Thank you guys so much. I said I had one more question, but I'm gonna combine. These are separate questions. If you guys are willing to answer them separately, but I think they both fit here. First question: what advice would you like to leave here? The second: what is one key message you want the audience to come away with?
My advice and my key message, I think, are probably the same, and that to always choose and prioritize proximity to those who are most impacted. I think no matter who you are, whether you're a legislator, a state agency director, or someone who has experienced the foster care system yourself, like it's a choice to be proximate to the current experiences of youth going through the system. And the more proximate we all are, especially if we hold some sort of power, the better off we are to creating the systems and therefore the communities that we all need. So my advice would be to choose proximity to get close to those who are most impacted and co-design solutions and possibilities.
That definitely ties right into my advice and the message I want to leave. It kind of ties into our name and title for this episode, and so I just want folks to understand and know for yourselves that it's okay to be loved, authentic, and compassionate, right? And so doesn't matter what you've been through, just finding that proximity, right, with yourself, right, where you feel you need to be, where you belong mentally, right, physically, spiritually, emotionally, wherever have you. Just find that balance for yourself, just so you could be a better you and a better you for other people.
Thank you so much for being here, being in this space with me. You know, I only got one more thing left for y'all, and this is last comments. This space, if you got a rap album, an EP, a audio book, a book out, whichever, it could be an article. I don't know, whatever it may be. Feel free to shout it out, share it, see how people can follow or connect with you or more.
Oh, Michael, I'm not that established yet. I don't have any of that kind of stuff to share, but if folks want to connect with me, I'm on all social media platforms and LinkedIn.
You can find me on Instagram at underscore Eltuan. That's underscore ELTUAN. And so you might not see much there, but you'll see more as, like Kayla mentioned, we're just getting started. We're in this to win this. We're just getting started. So I'm excited for a lot of the things that are coming, and some things I have in motion currently. You're also able to reach me and get in contact with me at my email address. That's ELTUANDAWSON, the number one, at gmail.com for direct contact.
Once again, thank you guys so much. You both don't know how much of an honor and a privilege it is to be able to highlight both of you guys, but also to be able to collaborate with my podcast to get this information out that you both have had stake in, and the AnnieECaseyFoundation has, been able to work on and so forth. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Kayla, known you for a few years now. And it's truly a privilege to see you keep study going, and so forth. Truly is beautiful to see. Eltuan, man, we brothers now, so I don't know what to tell you, but I'm gonna be over during Christmas. I'm just playing. I am just playing.
Sounds like a good time, Michael. Actually, it sounds like a good time, man. Hey, man, it's been nice, wonderful to meet you. I appreciate you creating a space for us to really share our ideas, our thoughts, and a little bit of some of the wonderful things we're doing.
Definitely. As I get ready to end out this episode, man, this is season 3, episode 10. I'm steady going. The goal is 50 episodes this season. My plan is to take a step back and to focus on my book, which I'll be releasing in a different aspect than most autobiographies. It'll be more so of a series, starting from my now and working my way to my then. But some of you guys know, like, typing is not my strong suit, so we gonna need some time to focus and getting that together. But also, I'm hoping to get more into the community. A lot of this podcast and what I'm trying to do is not just, advocacy in this macro level, but also getting out into the community, helping provide that space for healing and recovery for a lot of the things that affect our community, such as generational trauma and more. So look out for all of that. I'm also still trying to build this platform. So I'm looking for sponsors and different things like that to be able to keep this thing going. Right now, it's completely self-funded. I would love to be able one day to provide a space to help teach other young youth coming out of the system to be able to learn how to podcast and build a platform of their own, but also be able to give back and more. So thank you guys for listening. Be safe out there. Cold and flu season is coming up. So make sure you guys are, got your hand sanitizer, your mask and everything. If there has been something on this episode that may have potentially triggered you, brought a thought back into your mind, take some time before you go and do whatever you're doing to center yourself, get yourself back at baseline. If it's something that, is more deeper, more provoking, and you would like some assistance, finding support and more, please reach out to me. I would love to help you find that person for you to help you navigate that healing journey. Without further ado, I hope you guys have a good morning, good night, good whenever you're listening to this. This has been Resilient Voices and Beyond. Thank you. Talk to you guys soon.